Hey, this is Judah Mantel from SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over the changes, improvements, and bug fixes in version 0.4.9. This is pretty cool because it has one of my favorite new features that was in the works for a very long time, and that is that the virtual camera system has been completely overhauled to be much more reliable, better picture quality, and just overall with less latency. That being said, there still are some bugs and quirks that are being worked out, but I think it's worth releasing now because it really does speed up your workflow. So let's jump in and I'll show you what's new in this new release. So there will be a updated tutorial video for the tracking system that's going to be up soon, but this video will be a good overview of what's new. So I have the app running on my my phone here. We see we have a very wide angle, so I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. There we go. Now it's something a little more reasonable. So you can see here that the UI over here looks quite a bit different. So I'm going to disconnect. And if I open up this little section here, you'll see that as opposed to previously, which we had the code system, you have to type in a passcode that is displayed on the app. Now it's much simpler. On the app, there's actually no buttons at all. It just displays your local IP address. So to connect to it, you can either manually type it in, or it'll actually automatically discover it on your local network, which is really cool. The most important thing is to make sure your apps are updated to the latest version. So it's version 2.0 for the iOS and Android release, though there probably will be regular bug fixes and patches for those apps as well. So I'm going to click connect to show you the way this works. All you have to do is click connect, it searches for devices, and then it will be instantly connected to your device. Now, as you're using this, you will see that the UI on the device, the camera tracking app as well, looks quite a bit different. It has a bunch of new features that are pretty cool. So you can change a bunch of things from the aspect ratio to controlling the sliders and properties in a much easier way. But overall, you might notice that the tracking is much more smooth and the latency is much lower. Now, to go over these settings over here, you'll see there's a bunch of new stuff. We still do have the smoothing option, so if I were to make this something like 3, you'll see now we have smoothing applied to it. But underneath those, there are two options for the stream quality, or the stream compression of the video feed, and the frame rate of the stream, the video feed. So right now it's at full compression, or 90%, which is the highest we go at the moment, and 60 frames a second. Now, this looks really good and really smooth, but it does result in a little more latency depending on your Wi-Fi network speed. So if I were to decrease this to something like 30, which is still very reasonable, and put this to something like 75 or even 50%, which is not really noticeable, you'll see the latency on the app at least is significantly reduced. And if latency is important to you and picture quality is not so much, you can just decrease this all the way. Now the picture will look pretty crappy, but the latency will be pretty solid. So it's kind of a trade-off that you have to decide what's most important. Now we also have two buttons over here for position and rotation. Now right now both of these are enabled, so it is tracking the rotation as well as the position, as you can see here. I'm sitting at my desk so I don't have that much space, but you can see it is tracking the position in 3D space as well. But if I wanted to just track position for like smooth dolly tracks or that type of tracking, I can turn off rotation and now you'll see it's just tracking position. Or I can turn off position and you'll see now it's just tracking rotation. Now what's cool is that when you turn off position, a little virtual joystick, a little like UI thumbstick will appear on the app. And that allows you to control the camera through 3D space while still controlling the rotation. So if you want to control it kind of like a gamepad or a game controller, you can control it through your scene. It's very sensitive when looking at the screen, so you kind of have to look at your app to get a better sense of the way it works. It still does rely on your direction here, so I still do need to turn it around to, where's the camera? Here we go. I still do need to control the rotation with my physical device here, but it just adds another level of control, another way of controlling the camera that wasn't there before. Now you'll see I do have the frame rate meter visible right now, and that is just to show how much faster this new system is. Previously, I were to essentially get the frame rate halved. So I'm running on VSync, so the max is about 59, 60 frames a second. And previously, when I would start using the tracking, it would go down to like 24. Or if I were to limit it even more, it would just get worse and worse. But now it basically has little or to no impact on the frame rate. So even if I were to turn this up to 120 frames maximum, you'll see that I'm still getting over 110 with little to no impact to performance. The tracking is a little off right now just because it's pointing at my screen, which is not very good for AR tracking. But if I were to point it in the opposite direction, it'll get much more accurate. So that is the mobile app update in version 0.4.9. I'm going to disconnect here. And now I can control the camera manually. Now it's worth noting two things. One, it is important that you have a camera in your scene, because if you don't, nothing will happen. So if I delete this camera, you'll see no cameras are rendering, and so when I try to connect, there's nothing for it to track, so nothing will happen. Additionally, your phone does need to have AR Kit on Apple's side or AR Core on the Android side of things in order to work. So keep that in mind, otherwise you're not going to get anything functioning. In the future, we hope to kind of expand the capability or the compatibility with devices, but I think right now, using those AR systems are just the most reliable way of doing things. And so with that, other than a few other bug fixes, which hopefully you won't have to worry about, that is version 0.4.9. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.